Please, doctor, don't give up on my father, his daughter pleaded as he walked out the door. Dr. William Thompson held the test results with trembling hands. 27 years in medicine, and he'd never felt so powerless facing a case. The man in room 314 was losing the battle, and all conventional treatments had failed. As he turned to leave the hallway, he was stopped by a gesture that halted him immediately. A young woman had knelt on the cold hospital floor, hands clasped in supplication. "Please, doctor, don't give up on my father," said Emily Wilson, her voice breaking. William felt a tightening in his chest. The scene reminded him of something he'd rather forget. 15 years ago, he'd been the desperate son begging for a miracle. "Ms. Wilson, he began, but the words escaped him. "I know the tests aren't good. I know you've tried everything. But my father is all I have in this world," Emily continued, still on her knees. The doctor glanced around the hallway. Other patients and family members watched the scene, some whispering among themselves. The situation was becoming uncomfortable, but something in the young woman's gaze kept him from walking away. "Please stand up," William requested, extending a hand to help her. Emily took the doctor's hand and slowly rose. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was unshakable determination in her gaze. "Doctor, do you have children?" she asked. William swallowed hard. That question always unraveled him completely. No, I don't," he replied, looking away. "Then maybe you can't understand what I'm feeling. My father raised me and my two brothers alone after our mother left us. He worked day and night to give us an education, food, a roof over our heads. We never lacked for anything." The doctor remained silent, clutching the test results to his chest. "And now," Emily continued, "when he needs me most, I can't do anything. I can only rely on people like you, who studied so hard to save lives. Ms. Wilson, I understand your pain, but you must realize there are cases where—" "No," she interrupted, louder than intended. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to shout, but I won't accept that answer. There must be something else we haven't tried. Some specialist, some experimental treatment, something." William looked at the test results again. Robert Wilson, 58 years old, had been hospitalized for 2 weeks with a rare condition affecting multiple organs. His condition was deteriorating rapidly, and none of the treatments were working. "Let's talk in my office," he finally said. Emily followed him through the halls of Mercy General Hospital in Denver. It was one of the best hospitals in the city, but even so, not every case had a happy ending. Dr. Williams' office was simple, with a wooden desk, 2 chairs, and diplomas on the walls. Emily sat in the patient's chair, while the doctor stood behind his desk. "Ms. Wilson, I need to be honest with you. Your father has a very rare syndrome, affecting fewer than 1 in 100,000 people. We've consulted specialists from New York City, from Los Angeles. They all reached the same conclusion." "What conclusion?" Emily asked, bracing herself for the worst. "That there's not much more we can do except keep him comfortable." "Comfortable?" she repeated, not understanding. "Sedated, pain-free, until the end." Emily felt as if the world had collapsed on her. She shook her head vigorously. No, that won't happen. My father is strong. He's always been a fighter." "I know it's hard to accept, but—" "Dr. William," she interrupted, leaning forward. "Just give me one chance. One last attempt. If it doesn't work, I promise I won't bother you again." The doctor sighed deeply. That determination reminded him of himself so many years ago. He remembered the despair, the refusal to accept the inevitable. "What do you have in mind?" "I've done a lot of research online. I found a doctor in New York City who's running an experimental treatment for cases like my father's. Dr. Richard Anderson from University Medical Center." William knew Richard. They had studied together in college but had lost touch over the years. "I know Dr. Richard," he admitted, "but transferring your father now would be very risky. He's in critical condition." "More risky than leaving him here to—" She couldn't finish the sentence. The doctor fell silent for a few minutes, observing the determination on Emily's face. There was something about this young woman that moved him deeply. "Ms. Wilson, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. Why aren't your siblings here? Why are you facing this alone?" Emily lowered her head. It was a question she had hoped not to answer. My siblings, they haven't spoken to my father in 5 years. May I ask why? It's a long story, Doctor. My father made some choices they couldn't forgive. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, back to the story. What kind of choices? William pressed. Emily took a deep breath. Telling that story was painful, but perhaps necessary for the doctor to understand why she couldn't give up. When I was 17, my father started drinking. A lot. He had lost his job at the factory where he'd worked for 20 years. The company shut down and he was left with no prospects. And that caused problems at home. Not just problems, Doctor. My father became a completely different person. He yelled at us, broke things around the house, spent what little money we had on alcohol. William listened in silence, beginning to grasp the complexity of the situation. My siblings, Michael and Jennifer, couldn't take it. They left home as soon as they turned 18 and never came back. They say our father chose alcohol over family. And you stayed? I couldn't abandon him, Doctor. Under all that anger and bitterness, I could still see the man who taught me to ride a bike, who stayed up with me when I was sick, who sold his own shoes to buy our school supplies. Did he stop drinking? 3 years ago. That's when he found out he had liver problems. The doctor told him if he kept drinking, he wouldn't live more than 6 months. It was like he woke up from a nightmare. And your siblings knew about this? I tried talking to them many times. Michael lives here in Denver, works as an engineer at a big company. Jennifer moved to Los Angeles. She's a college professor. Both of them built their own lives and don't want anything to do with the past. William stood and walked to the window of his office. Outside, the city buzzed with life, people rushing to their commitments, unaware of the drama unfolding in that hospital. Ms. Wilson, I'll be honest with you. Even if I can arrange your father's transfer to New York City, the chances of success are very slim. Dr. Richard is working with an experimental protocol that hasn't been approved for general use yet. But there's a chance, isn't there? A very small one. To me, a small chance is better than no chance at all. William returned to his chair and studied Emily for a moment. There was a strength in this young woman that impressed him. She couldn't be more than 25, yet she displayed an emotional maturity many people never develop. I can call Dr. Richard right now, he said finally. But you need to understand the risks, ma'am. Your father may not survive the transport, and even if he makes it to New York City alive, the experimental treatment might not work. I understand, Doctor, and I take full responsibility. William picked up the phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in a long time. Richard, this is William Thompson from Mercy General Hospital in Denver. William, what a surprise. How are you, man? I'm well, thank you, Richard. I'm calling because I have a case here that might fit your experimental protocol. Emily watched anxiously as the doctor explained her father's condition. Every now and then, William jotted something down on paper. I see, yes, I can email all the test results. What kind of preparations would be needed for transport? The conversation lasted another 15 minutes. When William finally hung up, Emily was on the edge of her seat. So, Doctor? Dr. Richard has agreed to take your father, but there are some conditions. What conditions? First, we need to stabilize him completely before transport. That could take 2 or 3 days. Second, the family must sign a waiver accepting all risks. And third, William hesitated. Third what, Doctor? The treatment is expensive. Very expensive. Your father's insurance won't cover the cost since it's an experimental procedure. Emily's heart raced. She knew this moment would come. How much? $200,000. The number echoed in the room like thunder. Emily paled and gripped the arms of her chair. $200,000. That's the cost of the medications, specialized hospitalization, and tests. Dr. Richard isn't charging for his services, but the other expenses are unavoidable. Emily buried her face in her hands. Where would she get such a large sum? Her father had a small pension, and she worked as a secretary at an accounting firm. Together, they couldn't even scrape together 10% of that amount. I don't have that kind of money, Doctor. I figured. That's why I hesitated to make the call. But there must be a way. Some government program. An institution that helps with cases like this. William shook his head. For experimental treatments, there's no public coverage, and private institutions rarely fund this kind of procedure. Emily fell silent for several minutes, trying to process the information. $200,000. To her, it might as well have been $2 million. What if I could only get part of the money? Would Dr. Richard accept that? I don't know, I'd have to ask him. Please, Dr. William, ask if he'd take $50,000 up front and the rest in installments. Ms. Wilson, please, I'll sell my car, take out a bank loan, borrow from everyone I know. I'll find a way to get at least part of it. William looked at the determined young woman and felt growing admiration. How many people would be willing to make such sacrifices for someone else? All right, I'll call him again. The second call was shorter. Richard explained that the medication suppliers required full payment up front. There was no option for installments. But he offered a compromise. If the family could raise $100,000, he'd cover the rest out of his own pocket. $100,000, Emily repeated when William relayed the offer. It's a lot of money, but it's better than $200,000. Ms. Wilson, may I make a suggestion? Of course, Doctor. Talk to your siblings, explain the situation. Maybe they can help financially, even if they don't want to be emotionally involved. Emily laughed bitterly. You don't know my siblings, Doctor. They blame me for standing by our father all these years. They say I spoiled him, made it easier for him to keep drinking. But now the situation is different. It's a matter of life or... I can try, interrupted Emily, but I don't have much hope. In the meantime, I'll prepare all the necessary paperwork for the transfer. If we get the money, your father could be in New York City by the end of the week. Emily left the office with mixed feelings. On one hand, there was real hope of saving her father. On the other, the financial challenge seemed insurmountable. When she reached room 314, she found Robert Wilson sedated, hooked up to various machines. His face, once robust and ruddy, was now pale and gaunt. The hands that once carried heavy loads at the factory now looked fragile against the white sheets. Dad, Emily whispered, holding his hand, I found a possibility. I'll do everything I can to get the money, I promise. She sat in the chair beside the bed and picked up her phone. The first number she dialed was Michael's, her older brother. Emily? A male voice answered. Michael, I need to talk to you. It's about Dad. Emily? We've already talked about this. I don't want to get involved. Michael, please, just hear me out for a minute. Dad is really sick. The doctors found an experimental treatment in New York City, but what? We need $100,000. The silence on the other end stretched so long, Emily thought the call had dropped. Michael, are you there? I am. Emily, are you out of your mind? $100,000. I know it's a lot of money, but you make good money. You have savings. I have savings to buy a house to secure my family's future. I'm not throwing it all away because of him. Michael, he's our father. He was our father. Now he's just the man who destroyed our family with his drinking. He stopped drinking, Michael. It's been 3 years since he's touched a drop. And you think that erases everything he did? All those nights he came home drunk, yelling at everyone? All the times he broke things, humiliated us in front of the neighbors? Emily felt tears streaming down her face. I know he made mistakes, Michael. I know he hurt us. But he was also the man who raised us alone after Mom left. He worked 3 jobs to pay for our education. That doesn't justify what he did later. What if it were me, Michael? If I were sick, needing money to save me, would you help? You're different, Emily. You never hurt us. But I'm the daughter of the same man you are. Michael sighed deeply. Emily, I can't help you with this. It's too much money and I don't believe it's the right thing to do. Michael, I'm sorry, sis, but my answer is no. The call ended, leaving Emily heartbroken. She knew Michael would be hard to convince, but she had hoped brotherly love would prevail. With trembling hands, she dialed Jennifer's number. Hi, Emily. What a surprise to hear from you. Jennifer's voice was cheerful on the other end. Hi, Jen. How are you? Good, working a lot at the university, but good. And you? How are things in Denver? Emily took a deep breath. Jennifer had always been kinder than Michael. Maybe there was a chance. Jen, I need to talk to you about something serious. It's about Dad. Jennifer's cheerful tone vanished immediately. Emily, you know I don't like talking about him. I know, but this time it's different. He's in the hospital, really sick. The doctors think he might what? That he might not make it. Jennifer was silent for a few seconds. Emily, I'm really sorry you're going through this, truly, but I made a choice 5 years ago to cut ties with him. Jen, we found an experimental treatment in New York City. There's a chance to save him, but it takes money, right? I already talked to Michael yesterday. He told me you'd call. You already knew? I did. And my answer is the same as his. I can't help you with this. Danny, it's $100,000. Divided by 3, it would be a little over $30,000 each. I know you can afford it. Emily, it's not about whether we can afford it. It's about principles. That man chose alcohol over his family. He made his bed, now he has to lie in it. He's changed, Danny. For 3 years now, he's been a completely different person. 3 years don't erase 10 years of suffering, Emily. What if he had apologized? What if he admitted his mistakes? But he didn't, did he? All these years, he never came to us to say sorry. Emily fell silent. Jennifer was right. Robert had never reached out to the children who walked away. He always said he respected their decision, that he understood their anger. Danny, I'm begging you. If not for Dad, then for me. I'm your sister. And that's exactly why I can't help you, Emily, because I love you, and I hate seeing you waste your life taking care of someone who doesn't deserve it. He does deserve it, Danny. He's our father. He was our father. Now, he's just a man who hurt us deeply. The call ended with Emily crying inconsolably by her father's bedside. How would she get $100,000 on her own? Her secretary's salary barely covered basic household expenses. But something inside her refused to give up, a strength born from all the love she held for that imperfect man who had raised her. Over the next 3 days, Emily moved heaven and earth to gather the money. She sold her used car for $15,000, took out a bank loan using the small apartment she shared with her father as collateral, securing another $20,000. She borrowed from friends, distant relatives, co-workers. By the end of the 3rd day, she had scraped together $42,000, less than half of what she needed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, back to the story. That night, she sat in the hospital cafeteria, calculating and recalculating her options, when a familiar voice startled her. Emily? She looked up to see an elegant woman with neatly styled grey hair and expensive clothes. It took her a moment to recognize her. Mrs. Dorothy? Dorothy Miller had been the Wilsons' neighbor for over 15 years. A widow, she had always been cordial with Robert and his children. What a coincidence running into you here, dear. Are you all right? You look exhausted. Emily forced a smile. I'm fine, Mrs. Dorothy. My father's hospitalized here. Hospitalized? What happened? For the next 20 minutes, Emily poured out the whole situation to Mrs. Dorothy. Her father's illness, the experimental treatment in New York City, the desperate need for money, her siblings' refusal to help. My goodness, what an awful situation, Dorothy murmured. How much have you managed so far? $42,000. I still need 58 more. Dorothy grew thoughtful. Emily, may I ask you something personal? Of course, Mrs. Dorothy. Why don't you give up? Why keep fighting for someone who, by your own siblings' account, hurt your family so badly? It was a question Emily had asked herself dozens of times these past days. Because he's my father, Mrs. Dorothy. And because deep down I know he was always a good man. Alcohol turned him into someone he wasn't. Are you sure about that? I am. Do you remember when I broke my arm at 8? Vaguely. I fell off my bike in the street. My father carried me all the way to the hospital running. 3 whole miles. He got there drenched in sweat, gasping for air. But he never let go of me, not even for a second. He stayed awake all night by my side, holding my hand. Dorothy listened attentively. And when I was in high school, I really wanted to take an English course, but we didn't have the money. My father started working as a night watchman on top of his factory job. 2 jobs, Mrs. Dorothy, just to pay for my course. And your brothers don't remember these things. They do, but they chose to focus only on the bad. I chose to remember the whole man. Dorothy remained silent for a few minutes, watching the determination on Emily's face. My dear, let me tell you something you might not know. About 10 years ago, when your father was going through that difficult phase with drinking, he came to me. He came to you. For what? To ask me for a favor. He wanted me to keep an eye on you 3. He said he knew he was failing as a father, but if anything happened to him, he wanted to make sure you'd be all right. Emily's eyes widened. He never told me that. He made me promise not to. He said he didn't want you to know because he didn't want it to seem like he was using it as an excuse to keep drinking. Mrs. Dorothy, he cried that day, Emily. Cried like I've never seen a man cry. He said he'd lost control of his own life, but the love he felt for you was the only thing still keeping him alive. Emily felt tears welling up again. And later, when he stopped drinking, he came to me again. He wanted to know if I thought he should try to reconnect with the children who'd pulled away. I said yes, but he told me he'd respect their decision. Why are you telling me this now? Dorothy rummaged through her purse and pulled out an envelope. Because I want you to know your father was always a man of character, even when he was lost, and because I want to help. Help how? There's $50,000 in this envelope. Emily was speechless. She stared at the envelope as if it were an apparition. Mrs. Dorothy, I can't accept this. Yes, you can. My husband left me well off when he passed. I have no children, no one to leave this inheritance to. If I can use this money to save a good man's life and help a daughter who shows so much love, then this is how I want to spend it. But it's so much money, Mrs. Dorothy. How will I ever pay you back? You won't, my dear. You'll just keep being the wonderful person you are. That's the only payment I want. Emily hugged Dorothy as tightly as she could, crying with emotion and gratitude. Thank you, Mrs. Dorothy. You have no idea what this means to me. Oh, I think I do, sweetheart. Now go find Dr. William and tell him you've got the money. Emily rushed through the hospital corridors until she found Dr. William finishing his shift. Dr. William. Ms. Wilson, what's wrong? We got the money. We got the $100,000. William looked at her in surprise. You did? How? It's a long story, Doctor. The important thing is we can transfer my father to New York City. All right. I'll call Dr. Richard right now. Your father can travel tomorrow morning. That night, Emily slept for the first time in weeks. There was real, tangible hope of saving her father's life. The next morning, as Robert Wilson was being prepared for transport to New York City, something unexpected happened. Michael showed up at the hospital. Michael? What are you doing here? Emily asked, surprised. I came to say goodbye to him. Goodbye. Emily, I still think you're making a mistake spending all this money, but I admire your courage. Michael, do you want to talk to him before we leave? Michael looked at his father, sedated on the stretcher, and shook his head. No, I wouldn't know what to say. Yes, you would. You have so much to say. Emily, what I have to say to him isn't good. Then maybe now is the time to say it, so both of you can find peace. Michael watched his father for a few minutes. Finally, he stepped closer to the gurney. Dad, he began, his voice trembling. I don't know if you can hear me, but I need to say some things. Robert remained sedated, but Emily noticed his eyes moving slightly beneath closed eyelids. I hated you for so many years. I hated what you did to our family. I hated having to leave home at 18 because I couldn't stand seeing you like that anymore. Michael paused to take a deep breath. But I also hate myself for abandoning you, for not having the courage Emily had to stay and help you out of that hole. Emily watched with a heavy heart. If you pull through this, Dad, if you get better, maybe we can talk. Maybe we can try to rebuild something. At that moment, Robert slowly opened his eyes. He was still under sedation, but conscious enough to recognize his son. Michael, he whispered weakly. Hi, Dad. You came. I did. Emily is taking you to New York City for special treatment. Robert tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Michael held his father's hand. Dad, I'm so sorry for leaving you. Don't be sorry, Robert managed to say. You did the right thing. I was a terrible father. You weren't terrible, Dad. You were lost. I love you, Michael. Always loved you three. Michael squeezed his father's hand tighter. I love you too, Dad. Even with all the anger, I never stopped loving you. The medical team interrupted the moment to begin transport. Michael stepped back from the gurney, visibly emotional. Emily, call me from New York City. Keep me updated on everything, okay? Okay, Michael. Thank you for coming. And Emily, if you need anything else, anything at all, you call me. The trip to New York City was tense. Robert was stable but still in critical condition. Emily rode in the ambulance, holding her father's hand the entire 6-hour journey. When they arrived at University Medical Center, they were greeted by Dr. Richard Anderson, a middle-aged man with graying hair and a warm smile. Ms. Wilson, I'm Dr. Richard. William told me a lot about you. Dr. Richard, thank you so much for agreeing to treat my father. We'll do our best, but you should know this is an experimental treatment. There are no guarantees. I understand, Doctor. What matters is that we try. Robert was immediately taken to the specialized ICU, where he would undergo a series of tests before treatment began. For the first 3 days in New York City, there were no significant changes in Robert's condition. The experimental treatment involved a combination of medications targeting the syndrome from different angles. On the 4th day, Emily was asleep in the waiting room when a nurse woke her. Ms. Wilson, Dr. Richard would like to speak with you. Emily's heart raced. Was it good news or bad? Ms. Wilson, Dr. Richard said when she reached his office, I have updates about your father. Good or bad, Doctor? Good, very good. The treatment is working. Tests show significant improvement in the affected organs. Emily's legs nearly gave out, and she steadied herself on the chair. He's going to be okay. It's too soon to say for certain, but the signs are very promising. If he keeps improving like this, he could be discharged in 2 weeks. Emily cried with joy. All the struggle, all the sacrifice, it had been worth it. Can I see him? Of course, he's awake and asking for you. When Emily entered the ICU, she found Robert sitting up in bed with a little more color in his face. Daughter, you did it. We did it, Dad. Together. Emily, I need to ask you something. What is it, Dad? I want you to call your siblings. I want to talk to them. Dad, are you sure? Michael came to say goodbye before his trip, but he's still hurt. And Jennifer. I know they're hurt, and they have every right to be. But if God is giving me a second chance at life, I want to use it to try and fix the mistakes I've made. Emily called Michael first. Michael, the treatment is working. Dad is getting better. Really? That's great, Emily. I'm so happy. Michael, he wants to talk to you. He wants to talk to both of you. Emily, I don't know if I'm ready for that conversation. Michael, remember what you said at the hospital, that if he got better, maybe you could talk. I remember. Then this is the chance. You don't have to forgive everything at once, but maybe it's time to start healing those wounds. Michael agreed to travel to New York City that weekend. Jennifer, after much insistence from Emily, also agreed to come. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. The Wilson family reunion happened on a sunny Sunday afternoon in the hospital room where Robert was recovering. When Michael and Jennifer walked in, the tension in the air was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Kids, Robert said, his voice trembling. Hi, Dad, they both replied, barely above a whisper. Sit down, please. There are some things I need to say to you. The 3 siblings gathered around the bed. Robert took a deep breath before speaking. First, I want to apologize to all 3 of you, but especially to Michael and Jennifer, who suffered more because you were older and understood better what was happening. Michael and Jennifer stayed silent. I know apologies don't fix what's broken. I know words can't erase years of pain. But I need you to know that I never, not for a single moment, stopped loving you. Dad, Jennifer interrupted. If you loved us, why did you choose alcohol? Because I was a coward, sweetheart. When I lost my job, when I saw our finances getting worse, when I realized I couldn't give you everything you deserved, I panicked. Robert wiped a tear from his face. Alcohol was my way of escaping reality, of pretending the problems didn't exist. But the more I drank, the bigger the problems became. Then why didn't you ever come after us? Michael asked. All these years, you never tried to reach out. Because I respected your decision. You had every right to hate me, to not want to see me. I had failed as a father. But Dad, Jennifer said, we were your children. You should have fought for us. You're right. I should have fought. I should have come after you, apologized, tried to rebuild our relationship. But I was too ashamed, too scared. The room fell silent for a few minutes. Finally, Michael spoke. Dad, I want to apologize too. Michael, you have nothing to apologize for. Yes, I do. I abandoned you when you needed help the most. Instead of trying to pull you out of that hole, I just ran away. Son, you were just a young man. It wasn't your responsibility to help me, but I was your son, and children don't abandon their parents no matter how hard things get. Jennifer began to cry. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for hating you all these years. I'm sorry for never trying to understand your pain. Robert opened his arms, and the three children embraced him around the hospital bed. It was a hug full of tears and pain, but also love and forgiveness. I love all three of you, Robert said, and if God gives me a few more years of life, I want to use that time to be the father you deserve. Dad, said Emily, we love you too, and we're going to be a family again. Not again, Michael corrected. We're going to be a family for the first time, a real family built on love and forgiveness. The next 2 weeks were a time of gradual recovery, not just for Robert, but for the whole family. Michael and Jennifer took turns staying with their father at the hospital, talking, getting to know each other again, and rebuilding bonds that had been broken. When Robert was finally discharged, he was physically healed and emotionally renewed. Dr. Richard walked him to the hospital door. Mr. Wilson, you were one of the most successful cases in our experimental protocol. Your recovery has been remarkable. Doctor, I couldn't have done it without my daughter, or without you and Dr. William. Truthfully, Mr. Wilson, what saved your life was love, the love of a daughter who never gave up, and the love of a family that learned to forgive. The Wilson family returned to Denver in a rented van, all together for the first time in 5 years. Michael had taken time off work to help with his father's recovery. Jennifer had gotten leave from university. During the trip, they talked about many things. Robert shared about his 3 years of sobriety and how his outlook on life had changed. Michael and Jennifer talked about their careers, relationships, and dreams. Dad, Jennifer said, there's something I've always wanted to ask. What is it, sweetheart? When you stopped drinking, what gave you the strength not to relapse? Robert thought for a moment. You. Even when you weren't around, I thought of you every day. I thought of Emily, who stood by me even when I didn't deserve it. I thought of you two who built beautiful lives despite everything, and I wanted to be a man worthy of being your father. And you did it, Dad, Michael said. You did it. When they arrived in Denver, a surprise was waiting for them. Mrs. Dorothy had organized a small welcome party with a few neighbors and family friends. Mrs. Dorothy, Robert said, hugging the woman who had made his salvation possible, I don't know how to thank you for what you've done. Robert, you don't have to thank me. I just helped love win. The rest was your doing. The party was simple but full of joy and gratitude. Robert was visibly moved to be back in his home, surrounded by people who cared for him. During the celebration, he asked for everyone's attention. I want to thank everyone here today. You've given me a second chance at life, and I promise I won't waste it. Especially, he continued, looking at his children, I want to thank my 3 kids. Michael and Jennifer for forgiving me, and Emily for never giving up on me, even when I had given up on myself. Dad, Emily said, we're family. Families don't give up on each other. That's right, Michael agreed. And now we're going to be a stronger family than ever. A family that learned love is stronger than any problem, Jennifer added. In the months that followed, the Wilson family went through a process of healing and rebuilding. Robert stayed firm in his sobriety and began volunteering at a center that helped people with addiction. Michael started visiting regularly, bringing his wife and young children, whom Robert barely knew. Jennifer came from Los Angeles every 2 months and was planning to transfer to a university in Denver to be closer to the family. And Emily, who had sacrificed so much for so long, could finally focus on her own life. She met a young man at work, went back to night school to finish the degree she had abandoned to care for her father. 6 months after his hospital discharge, the family gathered to celebrate Robert's birthday. The table was full with the whole family together, including grandchildren who now knew their grandfather better. Dad, said Michael, raising his glass, I'd like to make a toast. Go ahead, son. To the man who taught us it's never too late to start over, to the father who found the strength to change, and to the family who discovered that forgiveness is the greatest gift we can give each other. Cheers, they all said in unison. Robert looked around the table, seeing the faces of the people he loved most in the world. A year ago, he had been in a hospital bed, given up by the doctors. Now, he was surrounded by love, second chances, and hope. Kids, he said, you've given me the greatest gift a father could receive, the chance to be a father again, and I promise to honor that chance every day of my life. That night, after everyone had left, Robert and Emily stayed talking on the porch. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. During all those hard years, what kept you going? Robert looked up at the starry sky before answering. You, honey. Even in my worst moments when I was completely lost, I'd look at you and know there was something good in this world, something worth fighting for. Dad, I never told you, but there were times I thought about giving up. Times when I thought it would be easier to just leave, like Michael and Jennifer did. What made you stay? Love. The love I had for you, but also the certainty that deep down you were still the man who taught me to ride a bike, who stayed up with me when I was sick. Robert hugged his daughter tenderly. Emily, you were my guardian angel. God put you in my life to save me. No, Dad. God put us in each other's lives so we could save each other. A year later, Robert was fully recovered and had become a role model in the community as someone who had overcome alcoholism. He gave talks at support groups, helping other families going through similar struggles. The Wilson family had become proof that broken bonds could be mended, that forgiveness had the power to heal wounds that once seemed incurable. Michael started a consulting firm and offered his sister a job, which she accepted, discovering she was an excellent manager. Jennifer got transferred to Denver and was dating a fellow teacher who fell in love not just with her, but with the whole family. Robert, meanwhile, met Mrs. Margaret, a widow who attended the same support group. She had lost her husband to alcohol-related issues and initially approached Robert just to better understand the disease. Over time, they developed a friendship that grew into something deeper. Dad, Emily said when Robert told her about the relationship, you deserve to be happy. Are you sure, honey? Don't you think it's too soon? Dad, you lost so many years of your life. If you've found someone who makes you happy, who understands you, you should move forward. What if your siblings don't approve? They will because they love you and want you to be happy. And indeed, Michael and Jennifer welcomed Mrs. Margaret with open arms. She was a kind, down-to-earth woman who understood the challenges of recovery and supported Robert on his journey. 2 years after nearly losing his life, Robert Wilson married again in a simple ceremony held in the backyard, surrounded by family and friends. Emily was the maid of honor. Michael and Jennifer were the best men. During the ceremony, the pastor reflected on second chances, on the human ability to rise from the ashes. Robert and Margaret show us that it's never too late to start over, that love can bloom even after great loss and suffering. After the ceremony, during the reception, Robert asked to speak. "I want to thank everyone here today. 2 years ago, I was lying in a hospital bed, and many people, including myself, thought my story had come to an end. But God had other plans for me. He gave me a second chance through the unconditional love of my daughter Emily, the forgiveness of my children Michael and Jennifer, the generosity of people like Mrs. Dorothy, and the skill of doctors like Dr. William and Dr. Richard. And now, He's giving me a third chance through Margaret's love." Robert paused to wipe away tears. "I've learned that life isn't about never falling. It's about having the courage to get back up every time we do. It's about accepting help when we need it. It's about forgiving and asking for forgiveness. It's about never giving up on love. And most of all," he said, looking at Emily, "it's about having people by our side who believe in us, even when we don't believe in ourselves." The reception went on late into the night, with music, dancing, stories, and laughter. It wasn't just a celebration of a wedding, but of love triumphing over despair, of family overcoming separation, of life conquering adversity. When the party ended, Robert and Margaret left for their honeymoon at a small inn in Charleston, a historic town they'd chosen for its simplicity and charm. During the trip, Robert reflected on the journey he'd taken, from the darkest moments of his life to the happiness he was living now. "Margaret," he said, as they walked along the cobblestone streets of the historic town, "do you believe in miracles?" "I do." "Why?" "Because I'm a living miracle. 2 years ago, the doctors had given up on me. Today, I'm here with you, married, happy, with my family reunited. Robert, you're not a miracle. You're the result of love and the determination of people who never gave up on you." "But isn't that a miracle?" Margaret smiled and took her husband's hand. "Maybe it is. Maybe the greatest miracle is the love a daughter can have for her father, enough to move mountains to save him." Back in Denver, life for the Wilson family returned to normal, but now with a solid foundation of love, understanding, and forgiveness. Robert continued his volunteer work, helping others find their way to recovery. Emily married her boyfriend 2 years later, in a ceremony where Robert had the honor of walking her down the aisle. Michael expanded his business and became a successful entrepreneur. Jennifer was promoted to department coordinator at the university. But most importantly, they remained united as a family. Sunday lunches became a sacred tradition. Birthdays, holidays, always celebrated together. Robert became a loving, present grandfather. His grandchildren adored listening to his stories, and he found in them a new source of joy and purpose. One Sunday afternoon, 5 years after the hospital episode, the family gathered in the backyard for a barbecue. Robert watched his children, in-laws, and grandchildren laughing and talking, feeling immense gratitude for being alive to witness it. "What are you thinking about, Grandpa?" asked Dylan, Michael's 8-year-old son. "I'm thinking how lucky I am to have a family like you." "Grandpa, Mum said you were really sick once and almost went away." Robert looked at his grandson tenderly. "That's true, sweetheart, I was very sick. How did you get better?" Robert glanced around. Emily chatting with her sisters-in-law, Michael tending to the grill, Jennifer helping the kids with homework, Margaret preparing the salad. "I got better because I have a family who loves me very much, and because I learned we should never give up on each other. Not even when someone does something wrong? Not even when someone does something wrong, because everyone deserves a second chance to be better." Dylan thought for a moment. "Grandpa, you're the best grandpa in the world." Robert hugged his grandson, feeling his heart overflow with happiness. "And you're the best grandson in the world." That afternoon, as he watched his family gathered together, Robert Wilson reflected on the journey that had brought him there. There were still moments when he wondered if he deserved so much happiness after all the mistakes he had made. But then he would look at Emily, at the strength and love she had shown when everyone else had given up on him, and he understood that sometimes what saves us isn't what we deserve, but the unconditional love of people who believe in our ability to change. The story of the Wilson family became legendary in their community. Many people going through similar situations sought Robert out to talk, to understand how he had managed to rebuild his life and his family. "What's the secret?" they would ask. "The secret," he always replied, "is to never give up on love. Even when everything seems lost, even when we no longer believe in our own ability to change, there's always someone who believes in us, and that someone can be our salvation." And so, Robert Wilson lived many more years, surrounded by the love of his family, serving his community and at peace with himself. He had learned that life may give us second chances, but it's up to us to have the courage to take them. The end. Now, tell me what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave a sincere comment below. Do you believe forgiveness can truly heal such deep wounds? I'd love to read your thoughts. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartfelt stories.